Let's start. Okay, so today my goal is to talk about lattice reduction. And in particular, triple L and BKZ. Okay, so what we have as input is a matrix B, say in Q or Z. Let's take Q to the n times n. So I'm assuming it's a full rank lattice, invertible. And this represents a lattice L, which is B times Zn. So I look at the lattice spanned by the columns of B. Okay, and as output, I would like B equal Bx in L. So x is an integer vector, which is somewhat small. So it should be non-zero with B small. And in particular, we know that we can achieve norm of B smaller than square root n times determinant to the 1 over n by Minkowski's theorem. So what I want is small compared to determinant to the 1 over n. Okay. Okay, so I can, if I'm very demanding, I could ask smaller than square root n times determinant to the 1 over n. But here I'm going to be happy if it's somewhat small compared to determinant times to the power of 1 over n. Okay, so this is the general target here. Okay, so before I move to algorithms that actually do that, achieve that, I'm going to introduce QR factorization. And what is called size reduction. Okay, so very often triple L and lattice reduction algorithms are presented using Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization. I don't like it. I don't find it very convenient. I prefer QR factorization because then we can do everything in terms of matrices. It's much more, if you don't know Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization and triple L yet, it's much more convenient to describe it in this way. If you already know triple L based on Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization, then you have to translate in your head to adapt yourself. So I will try to help you. Okay, so let's B. So here R to the n times n works, non-singular. Non-singular just means invertible. There exists Q orthogonal. So Q is in R to the n times n, orthogonal. So orthogonal means that QTQ equal QQT equals the identity. Okay. So geometrically speaking, it's a rotation. So in dimension 2, you just turn your head and you have an orthogonal Q. And R, upper triangular with positive diagonal entries. Okay, such that B is equal to QR. Okay. And on top of this decomposition is unique. Q and R like this are unique. Okay, so let's try to do it geometrically. Okay, so I start with I will need a bigger picture. Okay, so let's look at it this way. So say you have B1, first vector, and B2, a second vector. So I'm looking at the matrix B made of B1 concatenated with B2. So let me describe what is R, the R matrix. So R, 1, 1. So the first non-trivial coefficient of R is R11. R11 is just the norm of B1. Okay, so it's this distance. Okay. Then there is so R11 essentially just captures the norm of B1, and then we move to the second vector. So in the second vector there is R12 and R22. So in fact, so what you do with B2 is that you project it orthogonally to B1. Okay, so you have an orthogonal projection here. So there is a component of B2 which is orthogonal to B1, and there is a component of B2 which is parallel to B1. Okay, and the component of B2 which is parallel to B1, this is R12. And the component of B2, which is orthogonal to B1, has norm R22. Okay. So this defines R somehow. And Q here is just whatever you need to rotate B1 and B2 so that these quantities are aligned with the axis. Okay, so Q, the first column of Q rotates B1 such that this becomes the x-axis. And the second column of Q rotates B2 such that this becomes the y-axis. Okay, so in the Q basis, so you have V equal Q times R11, or norm of B1, and then 0. So B1, the first vector, becomes aligned with the x-axis. And then along the x-axis, you have a component of B2, which is R12. And orthogonally to it, you have R22. Okay, and if you have 3 vectors, you can keep going like this. Okay. So now, for those who know Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization, it captures exactly the same information. Okay, so in terms of GSO, here is what I would have. So let me write B1, B2. Okay, so typically you would define B1 star. So this is Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization. Okay, so B1 star is defined as B1. And B2 star would be the projection, the orthogonal projection of B2 against B1. Okay, so that would be B2 star. Okay, and you can define B2 star as B2 minus mu21 B1, where this mu21, so you can compute things explicitly. So this is B2 inner product B1 divided by B1 squared. Okay, so more generally, you can set Bi star as Bi minus the sum for j smaller than I of the mu ij bj star with mu ij equal Bi inner product bj star divided by bj star squared. Okay, and if you do it like this, you can observe that the Bi stars, they are orthogonal from one another. And this is, so you can rewrite Bi as a combination of the previous Bj stars. And the mu ij's are the coefficients. Okay, so now what is the precise relationship between QR and GSO? So you would have Q, the matrix Q, is a matrix made of the Bi stars divided by their norms. Okay, which becomes an orthogonal matrix. Because if you multiply this by Qt, you are doing all the inner products. They are all 0 except the ones that correspond to the diagonal coefficients. So you have Bi star, inner product Bi star. And as everything is normalized, the non-zero elements in QTQ, they are all equal to 1. Okay, so indeed, it's an orthogonal matrix. And R would be of the following form. So on the diagonal, you have the Bi stars in norms. Okay, and above the diagonal, you have something related to the mu ij's. So you have R ij is equal to mu ji, and then you need to renormalize so that it makes sense. So I think it's times bj star. Yeah. Anyway, so if you are happy with QR, just stick to QR. If you really want to think of it in terms of GSO, this is a relationship. So indeed, B is equal to QR. And this equality is exactly this definition of the Bi stars. It's a rewriting of it. Any questions so far? Yes.
Why do we swap the indices?
What?
You swapped the indices in R and U.
Yeah, because it's how it is. I mean,
That's how you do it.
yeah, that's how the mu ij's are defined. So it's confusing. I mean, I think the GSO definition is just wrong. So it's just the GSO definition is very confusing, whereas QR is very clean in terms of matrices. So indeed, you have to be very careful because the mu ij's, they form a lower triangular matrix, whereas the R is upper triangular. And the mu ii's, they don't exist, whereas the diagonal coefficients of R, they are the norms. Okay, so what is the purpose of R? So in a sense, what does it say? It says that in terms of norms, in terms of Euclidean norm, everything, I mean, if I'm interested only in the Euclidean norm, I can just rotate the space in whichever direction that I want, that is convenient to me. It doesn't change the Euclidean norm. Okay, so Euclidean norm is invariant under rotations. So up to rotating, I can just turn my head such that the first vector is aligned with the x-axis. Okay, so to simplify, to not have an arbitrary first vector, I can just align the x-axis to the first vector. And that gives me R11 equals the norm of B1. And then I can rotate the space further so that the first two vectors they are aligned with the first two axes. And I can keep going like this. Okay, so in particular, an important property is that the norm of a vector B is the norm of QTB, because Q is just rotation. So if you rotate a vector, the norm is preserved, the Euclidean norm. And here the Euclidean norm is super important. I mean, this type of properties, you have it only for the Euclidean norm. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So here, L2 norm is important. Okay, so why is it interesting for my task of finding a short vector? So now, Bx small for x in the n. Okay, so this is what I want. I want a small bx. If I multiply by qt, okay, so this I can do just by the above. It's Rx. Okay, so instead of finding Bx small, I can just be happy in finding Rx small. And that should be a little bit simpler because R is upper triangular. Okay, so another remark related to lattices. So the determinant of L is the absolute value of the determinant of B, by definition. And the determinant of B is the determinant of Q times the determinant of R. This one is 1. Because it's orthogonal. It follows directly from the identity QTQ equal 1. And the determinant of R, as it is upper triangular, is the product of the diagonal coefficients. Okay, so also the determinant is trivial to obtain from the QR factorization. Okay, so far so good. So one important remark also is that all this is efficiently computable. So GSO and QR are efficiently computable. Okay, so all this is basically just linear algebra, so it's n-cube operations, big O of n-cube operations. What you have to be careful about is operations on what? So for B in Q to the n times n, you can prove that the GSO is rational. So not necessarily the norms of the BI stars, because, for example, the first one is norm of B1, so that involves the square root. So it's not necessarily rational, but the square of it is rational. And mu ij's are in Q of bit size, polynomially bounded in the bit size of B. Okay, so everything is efficiently computable for the GSO. And now QR, so QR may involve non-rational numbers, because in particular R11 is a square root, it's a norm. But it doesn't matter because they capture the same information. So if I want to store QR, I can just compute the GSO. So I was cheating a little bit when I said that QR is just simpler, because to actually store QR, you may want to store the GSO. So I'm not going to go into the details of this. I'm just saying that all this is efficiently computable. So from now on, we assume that if we have B, we have R, and this is essentially for free. Okay, so what is my goal? So let me rephrase my goal now. New goal. Okay, so I'm going to rephrase the old goal. So old goal rephrased. Given B. So I want to start with the basis. I don't want to end up with a single vector. I want to end up with a good basis. So given B, find U, unimodular. Such that BU is made of short columns. So in short, I will say it's small. Okay, so I want to take a basis, and I want to compute another basis, which is made of small vectors. Okay, so that would be my goal. And now, my new goal. Okay, so in particular, this problem involves n square rationals as input. So it's a problem over n square variables. So my new goal is given R. So this one has essentially n square over 2 variables. Find U, unimodular. Such that the R factor of RU is small. Okay, so in a sense, I've gone down from n square variables to almost n square over 2 variables. Okay, so now I'm going to give you size reduction. So size reduction is a way to not care about the off-diagonal coefficients. So somehow I've reduced from n squared to n squared over 2 variables. I'm going to go down to just n variables. And this is allowed by size reduction. Okay, so B equal QR is said size reduced. If Rij is less than Rii over 2 for all, what is it? I smaller than j. Okay, so somehow size reduction means the off-diagonal coefficients of R, they are somehow bounded by corresponding diagonal coefficients. Okay, so if I can make the diagonal coefficient small, and if it is size reduced, the matrix will be small. Okay, so how do I get it? So let's look at R. And let's take the coefficient Rij here. So this is Oi and column J. Okay. So what I would like to do is to make this coefficient smaller. So ideally, just 0. Okay, so that would be the ideal case, make this coefficient 0. What do I need to make this coefficient 0? I can multiply by the following matrix, which says keep all the columns as they are, but subtract some amount of times column I from column J. Okay, so in particular, here there is Rii. So if I subtract Rij over Rii times this column I from the column J, it will cancel out this coefficient. Okay, so that would be minus Rij over Ri. And the rest is just zeros. Okay, so what is the effect of this? Okay, so you have R11, so up to Rj minus 1, J minus 1, the columns are the same as before. And Rjj is unchanged, because if you look at what happens with this column, so I take this column and I remove a multiple of that one. So all this is 0. So it has no effect on the bottom part of the column J. Okay, so all this stays constant up to Ri plus 1 J. So they are as before. And then this coefficient, what is it? It's Rij minus Rii times Rij over Rii. So it's exactly 0. That's how I chose this coefficient. And then this bit is updated. So this bit is this minus a multiple of this. Okay? And then I get R, J plus 1, and so on till R and N. And all this is unchanged. Okay, so let me put in color what has changed. Oh, there is no color. So only this has changed. Okay, so that would be ideal. It would make this Rij coefficient 0. But there is a catch here. I'm not allowed to do this operation. So this has determinant 1. So in a sense, it's good, but it's not necessarily integral. There is no reason for this quantity to be an integer. Minus Rij over Rii may not be an integer. Thanks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is the next best thing. Instead of taking this quantity, which is a real number, so I'm not allowed to take this one, I'm going to take the nearest integer to it. Okay, so instead, you do R times 1, 1. And this coefficient, you put it equal to minus Rij over Rii. Okay. And now the effect of this. So you have a new R factor, which is R11 to Rj minus 1, j minus 1, Rjj, Rj plus 1, j plus 1, to R and N. And the only bits that have changed are this. Okay, so may have changed. And in particular, this one. So if you compute it, it's Rij minus the nearest integer to Rij over Rii times Rii. And this has absolute value, at most Rii divided by 2. Okay, so I have a way to make an individual coefficient of an individual off-diagonal coefficient of R smaller than the corresponding diagonal coefficient divided by 2 in absolute value. Okay, so if I can do it for one coefficient, I can do it for many. Okay, so the algorithm. So you have to be careful because whatever you do for a coefficient may pollute whatever you did before. Because when you update one coefficient, it updates other coefficients. But as you notice, when you update a coefficient, it only spoils the coefficients above. So if you go from bottom to top, you don't undo what you did before. Okay, so size reduction algorithm. Apply the previous transformation. For I equal 1 to n, and for j equal I minus 1 down to 1. Okay. And if you do it this way, your whole R matrix will be size reduced. Okay, so if you count the number of operations, here you have n square steps. And at every step, you update big O of n coefficients. So the overall cost is n cube in terms of number of operations. And then again, like for QR factorization or GSO computation, you have to be careful on which type of coefficients you are doing these big O of n cube operations. It turns out that if you do it with rationals, everything is polynomially bounded in the input bit size. So everything is polynomial time. One remark. So our goal before was to go from R to RU with small R factor. Okay, so it turns out that the U that you compute with size reduction is a product of upper triangular matrices. So this size reducing U is also upper triangular. So the R factor of RU is just RU. Okay, because R times U is identity times RU. This one is orthogonal, and this one is up triangular. So it's a QR factorization, and the QR factorization is unique. So the R factor of RU is RU. Okay, so what is the new goal? So now if I have a matrix B, I can just look at R, almost for free. And if I have R, I can make all the off-diagonal coefficients small. Okay, so the only thing that is left is to make the diagonal coefficients of R small. Okay, so allows us to make the off-diagonal coefficients small compared to the diagonal coefficients. Okay, so I have a new goal. Given R, find U, unimodular, such that the diagonal coefficients of RU are small. Okay, so if I can do that, I'm finished. I'm done. So actually, that's the hard bit, so to make the diagonal coefficients small. Any questions so far? So I cannot do anything here because the diagonal coefficients, their product is a determinant. And it's constant. Okay, so in particular, I cannot make the product arbitrarily small. It's a given value. Okay, so what I can make sure of is that the maximum of the RIAs is not too big, or the minimum is not too small. That's equivalent because the product should be constant. Or that they are somewhat balanced. Okay. For example, if you want to minimize the max when the product is constant, the best you can hope for is that they are all equal. Okay, so balanced is really the natural target. So unfortunately, we can't get that. That's not possible. So we'll be happy with guaranteeing that they don't decrease too fast. Okay, so in typical scenarios, they always decrease globally. So maybe between I and I plus 1, they increase, but for all the other indices, they decrease. So in general, they just decrease in practice. But in the worst case, they could increase. So for example, if you take 1, 10 to the 100, and 5, okay, that's an R factor. It's an upper triangular matrix. R11 is much smaller than R22. But in fact, I'm very happy with this basis, because the first vector is already a shortest vector in the basis, in the lattice. Okay, so typically when they increase, it's actually better than what I can hope for. Okay, so when they increase, in particular in this case, the first vector is the shortest non-zero vector in the lattice. Okay, so not only the typical scenario is when they decrease, but in fact when they increase, it's better. So if we are not in the general scenarios, then the situation is much better than what we can hope for. Okay, so oh, a very good idea. Okay, so now let's see what we can do about these diagonal coefficients. Okay, so it starts from the following observation. Let's consider a two-dimensional case. So in 2 dimensions, my R basis is quite elementary. I have R11, R12, R22. Okay, and let's assume the RIAs decrease very fast. Okay, let's assume that R22 is much smaller than R11. Okay. And by size reduction, I can assume that R12 is somewhat bounded by R11. Okay, so by size reduction, I master R12. And now I'm assuming that in a bad case, where R11 is much bigger than R22. Okay. So now observe the following. So if you swap, so R11, R12, R22, 0. Swapping means multiplying by this unimodular matrix. Okay, so I exchange the vectors. Now, what is the R factor? So it's not as trivial as in the previous case where U was upper triangular. Now the R factor is not R times U, because in particular, this is not upper triangular. Okay, so this matrix starts with 2 non-zero entries here and 1 non-zero entry here. So it's not upper triangular. So I need to re-orthogonalize it. But I'm in dimension 2, so I can just compute these things now myself. Huh? Okay. Okay, so how does it look like? And in particular, so here is 0. That's easy. That's the easiest coefficient. What is the first coefficient? Okay, so this coefficient, that's the norm of the first vector. Okay, so it's just the norm of this column. Okay, so that's one coefficient. There is another one which is easy to compute. The determinant is constant. So I know this one easily. It's R12, R11, R22 divided by square root of R12 squared plus R22 squared. And then whatever. Here there is something, I don't care about it. I can make it smaller than the first diagonal coefficient by size reduction anyway. I'm only interested in the diagonal coefficients here. Okay, so now what happened with this one? So I'm assuming that R12 is smaller than R11 over 2. So this is somewhat small compared to R11. And R22, I assume that it was very small compared to R11. So overall, this thing is quite small compared to R11. And that's why I win, because I've managed to go from R11 to something which is smaller than R11. So I've made the large coefficient a little bit smaller and the small coefficient a little bit larger, because the product is constant. Okay, so in particular, if R22, so which one did I take? Huh? I didn't write it. Okay. So if R22 is smaller than R11 divided by 2, for example, I end up with nu R11 nu equal square root of R12 squared plus R22 squared, smaller than, so this one is a quarter of R11 squared plus another quarter of R11 squared, which is R11 times 1 over square root 2. Okay. So I've managed to make the new R11 significantly smaller than the old R11. And significantly smaller is by a constant factor. Okay, so there is some freedom in this coefficient, which is related to some freedom in this one. Okay. So in the worst case, I mean, this argument, you can push it up to a constant here, which would be square root of 3 over 2, which makes this somewhat close to 1. Okay, but I'm not interested in the constants here. Okay, so there is some progress. So R11 has decreased by at least a constant factor. and R22 has increased by the same amount. Okay, so they are more balanced, and I'm happy. Okay, so if I want to keep going, I can repeat these things and make them more and more balanced. And at some stage, this assumption is not satisfied. And if this assumption is not satisfied, that means that R22 is not too small compared to R11. So that means they don't decrease too fast anymore. Okay. So this is actually called Gauss algorithm, or Lagrange. Okay, so what is LLL in this picture? So we have an R factor in dimension n for which we want to prevent the RIAs from decreasing too fast, and we know how to do it in dimension 2. Okay, so we are going to boost whatever we can do in dimension 2 to the n-dimensional case. Okay, so how do we do it? So we have R11 until Rnn, zeros, whatever, I don't care, it's smaller than half of the diagonal coefficients. And let's assume Rii is much bigger than Ri plus 1 I plus 1. Okay, so with the constants that I just chose, oh no, let me rewrite it this way, I plus 1 smaller than Rii over 2 for some I. Okay, so I'm assuming that I'm not done. There is an index I for which there is a significant decrease. Okay, so it's somewhere here. So here is Rii, here is Ri plus 1, I plus 1. And this one is called Ri I plus 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do, this is 0. I'm going to do whatever I did before to this two-dimensional block. Okay, so you take this thing. Then you keep all the others. So keeping all the others means you put the identity matrix as a transformation. And on these two, you apply the transformation that Gauss algorithm gives us, which is this one. Okay, so what is the effect of this? It's keeping everything, almost. Okay, and here it's updated. With square root of Ri I plus 1 squared plus Ri plus 1 I plus 1 squared. And this one, whatever is required to make the determinant constant. Okay, so it's exactly as before, applied to this block. And when I do this, okay, so I polluted some coefficients in R. So not these ones. These are the same as before. Not these ones. They are the same as before. Not these ones. Where is the nice color? I forgot it. These ones may have changed. This will have changed also. And these may have changed. But in fact, I don't care, because the only thing I care about at this stage is only the diagonal coefficients. So whatever happens for the off-diagonal coefficients, I can still just compute and make smaller by size reduction. Okay? So the effect of this is the new RII, exactly as before, is less than the old RII divided by square root 2. Okay, so I have a way to take a sequence of usually decreasing RIIs, and if there is a decrease between I and I plus 1 which is too fast, I can make the decrease a bit less fast. Okay. Okay, so let me bound the number of iterations of such a process. Okay, so there is a quantity called the potential, which usually comes as a magic tool to handle this bound on the number of iterations. So actually, it's a very natural object, and in the exercises of this afternoon, I hope that I give some intuition of where it comes from. But here it is. So here I just pretend it's magic. So I define pi as the product for I equal 1 to n of the RII to the n minus I plus 1. Okay, that's a magic quantity, which, if you rewrite it, is exactly the product for I equal 1 to n of the product for j equal 1 to I of the RJJ. Okay, so it's the product of the starting determinants. Okay, so the first observation about pi is that the only operation in everything I did so far that changes pi is these Gauss swaps. Okay, because the RIIs are not changed by size reduction, they are not changed by computing R, so the only thing that changes pi is just the swaps. Okay, so how does a swap change pi? So a swap doesn't change the first RIIs, doesn't change the end RIIs. And what you may observe also is that it affects very few starting determinants. swap between I and I plus 1 leaves product of the RJJ for j smaller than I prime, constant for every I prime less than I, okay, because it doesn't change any of these RIAs. But it also leaves product for j smaller than I prime of the RJJ constant for every I prime which is strictly more than I. Okay, so this one is slightly less obvious. And this is because in a swap, the determinant of the 2x2 block is constant. So if you look at the first I plus 1 RIIs, so the first I minus 1, they don't change, but the product of I and I plus 1 is constant by a swap. So that means the product of the first I plus 1s is constant. And then if you add more, then it's still constant. Okay, so the only thing when you look at the potential as a product of starting determinants, the only starting determinant that may change is the one that goes up to I. Okay. So now product for j less or equal to I of the RJJ nu. Okay, so in this product, only the ith term is changing, and it's decreasing by at least a factor square root 2. Okay, so it's smaller than product of the RJJ old divided by square root 2. Okay, so overall, it's a product of n determinants. Only one of them is changing, and the one that changes decreases by a factor square root 2. Okay, so pi nu is less than pi old divided by square root 2. Okay, so again, a constant factor for pi. Okay, so now let's look at the initial value of pi and the final value of pi. So at the start, pi, so it's a product of the RII to the n minus I plus 1. RII is itself the norm of a projection of the ith basis vector. Okay, so RII is itself smaller than the norm of BI. So which is less than max of the BIs So I have a product of big O of n square terms. So I'm going to put a big O of n square here. Okay, so it's potentially large, but in the exponent, it's n square log of the max of the BIs. Okay, at the end, what I'm claiming is that pi is always at least 1. So why is this? Because so it's not only at the end, it's always. One to j smaller than I of the RJJ. So what is this one? It's the determinant of the lattice spanned by the first I vectors. Or maybe it's not a good argument because I didn't define the determinant of a non-square lattice. So maybe that's not a smart choice. Anyway, so here you will have to trust me because I didn't do it yesterday. So if you take a B, a C, which is like this, so the determinant of L of C is the determinant of C transpose times C, and you take a square root. Okay, so this is to make C square. And then you take the square root, so that when C is square, you recover the same quantity as the usual determinants. Okay, so it turns out that this determinant is exactly this in terms of RIIs. And the BIs, if they are integral, their determinant is integral, the determinant of BTB. Okay, so this guy should be integral, and when this is square, that should be integral. Okay, so this implies that product of the R, JJ, J smaller than I square is in Z when the BIs are integral. Okay, so the square of the determinant is an integer. It's not 0 because none of the RJJs can be 0. So it's at least 1. Okay. And if the square is at least 1, the non-square is also 1, at least 1. Okay, so where are we now so far? We have proved that if B is integral, then the number of iterations of swaps. So we have a quantity that for every swap decreases by a constant factor. Initially, it's bounded by a quantity. At the end, it's always bigger than 1. So if we take the log of the max, the start, and over the log of the end, we have a bound on the number of iterations. As big O of n square log of max of the BIs. Okay. So this is a polynomial bound in terms of the input bit size. And now at every step, we argued that every step is a polynomial time. Okay, so I'm cheating a little bit here, because we could have every step polynomial time with respect to the size of the current basis in the current step. So you have to make sure that all the sizes that happen during all the execution of the algorithm are polynomially bounded with respect to the input bit size. That's not completely trivial, but that's also not very insightful. So I'm putting it under the carpet. If you're interested, it's done in the original Triple-L article and in other places, but it's not very interesting. What's really interesting is this bound on the number of iterations and the general strategy. Okay, so overall, I have a polynomial time complexity to get a basis for which the diagonal coefficients are prevented from decreasing too fast. And I did all this work, but I've not showed that this is an interesting property. Okay, so definition. The basis B equal QR is said Triple-L reduced if two conditions are satisfied. So the first one is just size reduction. Rij smaller than Rii over 2 for all I smaller than j. And the second one is Rii, so it doesn't decrease between I and I plus 1 for every I. So that's what the second condition says. So Rii, it's all gone now. Okay, so is less. So no, I wrote it with I plus 1. I plus 1. I plus 1 is more than Rii divided by 2. Okay, so locally they don't decrease too fast. Okay, and that's what the previous algorithm gives me. Because we keep, every time we can find an I such that it decreases fast, we do a swap. Okay, so why is it interesting? So it's achieved by the algorithm. Why is it an interesting definition? If B is LLL reduced, then B1 is equal to R11. And it's less than the product of the Rii's to the 1 over n times some coefficient, which is equal to the same coefficient times determinant to the 1 over n. Okay, so let me compute this coefficient. Okay, so I have between I and I plus 1, it cannot decrease by more than a factor 2. Okay, so between I1 and I, it cannot decrease by more than a factor 2 to the I minus 1. How did I write it? Okay, so it's just this one, the other way around, and multiplied sufficiently many times that I go from 1 to I. Okay, so put differently, Rii is not too small compared to R11. I've prevented it from decreasing too fast. Okay, so now I do the product of all these things. So I get R11 to the n, smaller than product of the 2 to the I minus 1 for I smaller than n, times product of the RII. So I've made my determinant show up. So this turns out to be 2 to the n times n minus 1 over 2. Because the product of the 2 to the powers of something, it's 2 to the power of the sum. And it's a sum of linear terms, so I get a quadratic term. Which is equivalent to R11. So now I take the nth power, the nth root. So the nth root, that's nice here because the n disappears. Okay, so this quantity here is 2 to the n minus 1 over 2. Which is exactly what I promised at the start. So I promised that I would find a B1 which is not too large compared to the nth root of the determinant. So here, not too large is within an exponential factor. Okay, so I think Elena? Sorry. How are we with time? It's over, no?
How much time do you?
I don't know, I can continue tomorrow. I can stop here. Okay.